First of all, I'm a company and capital markets professor at the University of Antwerp, and that has traditionally not a lot to do with cryptocurrencies. But 2 years ago, I was asked by the European Parliament to do a study on cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and financial crime, and since then I followed this topic up with great interest. And today I'm here with you to share some thoughts on the current state of play from a regulatory perspective. When you look at the slides, you will see that I have no slides, so I will only speak, and if you want to grasp the message, then you will need to listen. Okay, cryptocurrencies. Well, no, I will start differently. There it says Cryptomonnaies et blockchain, état des lieux. And on my paper it says cryptocurrencies and money laundering. But basically we're saying the same things, because cryptocurrencies are a form of digital currency that run on technology, and one of the technologies most often used is blockchain technology. So that's the obvious link between cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And when we refer to the state of play, well, I don't want to spoil the message, but it will be there is nothing save for the money laundering approach. So cryptocurrencies and money laundering is kind of the same thing as saying cryptomonnaies, blockchain, état des lieux. Cryptocurrencies and money laundering are a fast evolving topic. So fast evolving that although I speak about this topic regularly, I can unfortunately never reproduce the same speech. This being said, crypto is a huge phenomenon. When we look at 2018 numbers, they indicate that the total market capitalization of the 100 largest cryptocurrencies exceeds 330 billion euros globally. Since then, there will have been a small drop in the numbers, but not significantly. From a monetary policy and financial stability perspective, there is nothing to worry about, said Christine Lagarde before the European Parliament a couple of weeks ago. From that perspective, it's still considered a marginal phenomenon. Although, and Mark referred to this, the coming into existence of Libra, the Facebook coin, might change this, because it will have a very large, potentially, scale of billions of users. And that could have a monetary policy impact. But from other perspectives, it's certainly not a marginal phenomenon. The impact can be very huge for small investors who are confronted with extreme price volatility, as Mark mentioned. On one day you can buy a pizza with a Bitcoin, on the next day you can buy a yacht with the Bitcoin, and a day after you can again buy a pizza with it because of price volatility. I exaggerate, but you get that point. But also fraud. There are a number of cases where Bitcoins are used for fraud schemes. And it's also not the marginal phenomenon for crime fighters combating money laundering and terrorist financing. Every file is important. Even though the full scale of the misuse of cryptocurrencies is unknown, market value of illegal use has been reported to exceed 7 billion euros in 2018. So that's a lot. What are these cryptocurrencies exactly? Well, they can be described as follows: a digital representation of value, so not physical, intended as a peer-to-peer alternative to government-issued legal tender. It exists outside of a governmental situation. It's not controlled by the government, and it's used as a general-purpose medium of exchange. By design, these cryptocurrencies are means of payment. But they have outgrown this. They are used predominantly for speculative purposes. They're independent of any central bank. They're not controlled by a central bank. They are secured by a mechanism that is known as cryptography. So coins are encrypted. And last, they are convertible into legal tender and vice versa. With a Bitcoin, you have access to euro, and with a euro, you have access to Bitcoin, for example. Well-known examples are, as I said, Bitcoin, but you have a lot more. Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, Stellar, Cardano, Monero, Dash, and so on. Recently also announced and to be expected fully implemented, fully implemented early 2020, the Libra Facebook coin. Cryptocurrencies are to be distinguished from tokens. Tokens are designed to raise funds. They're not designed as a means of payment. But common currencies and tokens have a value. They both have a value. And that dependent on the characteristics that can be traded, whether or not speculatively. And therefore they can also be used or are susceptible at least for money laundering. So from a money laundering perspective, they should be seen together. Cryptocurrencies and tokens run on distributed ledger technology such as blockchain. I would like to stress very clearly in the beginning already that it would be too blunt to blame the technology for money laundering via cryptocurrencies. It's just technology. It's not designed to launder money. On the contrary, there are a lot of very legitimate use cases throughout the whole lawful economy. From a money laundering perspective, therefore, the technology should be left alone. And the focus should be on illicit use cases of cryptocurrencies. And this is also the approach that the European Union is taking. To fully grasp the scope of the rules, the regulatory framework relating to crypto, it's important to identify a number of key players in the crypto scheme. And the first player are users, people using cryptocurrencies to purchase something, which can be something tangible, like a car, but it can also be something intangible. It can be a service. It also can be illegal drugs or weapons. So people using coins. Secondly, in the case of mineable coins, there are miners. And a miner participates in validating transactions on the blockchain by solving a puzzle, a cryptographic puzzle. And if he or she can solve this puzzle, he is rewarded with newly mined coins. It sounds like a kid's game, but it is not. And at present, the risks associated with so-called mining businesses appear to be underestimated, because a criminal can mine his coins himself from his living room and start using them afterwards. Thirdly, cryptocurrency exchanges are to be distinguished. And these are entities offering exchange services to cryptocurrency users. And some are pure crypto exchanges, meaning that they exchange one cryptocurrency for another. And you also have the exchanges that exchange legal tender into crypto and vice versa. Euro for a Bitcoin, for example. An example of the latter is Coinbase. And the distinction is very important from a regulatory perspective, because these pure cryptocurrency exchanges are not caught by European anti-money laundering legislation, meaning that when you trade on a cryptocurrency exchange, there is no customer on a pure crypto exchange, there is no customer due diligence, and suspicious transactions do not have to be reported to a financial intelligence unit. Whereas if you trade on a crypto exchange where you exchange fiat currency into crypto and vice versa, there are customer due diligence requirements, and there is a requirement to report suspicious transactions. Fourth player, trading platforms. This can be seen as a sort of an eBay, where people find each other to trade in bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies. So it's a website connecting people to each other, not regulated. Fifth player, wallet providers. These are entities that provide crypto users with digital wallets to hold, store, and transfer their coins. The coin is a digital thing. It's also stored in a digital wallet. And simply put, such a wallet holds a cryptocurrency user's cryptographic keys. There are three types of wallets. You have the hardware wallet, tangible, like could be USB. Software wallet providers, providing users with a software application. You can download your wallet and save your coin on your own computer. And third, custodian wallet providers that take online custody of a cryptocurrency user's keys. For instance, Coinbase is such a wallet provider. This distinction is also important from an anti-money laundering perspective because only the custodian wallet providers are subject to money laundering legislation. When I say subject to money laundering legislation, I mean they are in the scope of Anti-Money Laundering Directive number 5, which will become applicable as of 1 January 2020. So as we speak, they're not yet covered, but next year they will be. 6, and there are only 7. I've learned that you should manage expectations. 6, coin creators, individuals or organizations who develop the technical foundations of a cryptocurrencies and set the initial rules for its use. Sometimes you know who it is. For instance, in the case of Ripple or Libra, you know who is behind it. But often you don't. For instance, Bitcoin are issued decentralized via a network of computers. Who is behind it? We don't know. Last category, coin distributors. Once a coin is created, it is further distributed throughout the system. They provide financial services like services with regard to crypto. Now, when you want to... Yes, please interrupt. Go ahead.
Évidemment, la question suivante par rapport aux acteurs de la sécurité que nous sommes, hein, par rapport à tout ce que tu expliquais, c'est maintenant de savoir quels sont nos principaux défis de la lutte contre la criminalité financière, donc le blanchiment d'argent par le biais de l'utilisation de monnaies virtuelles.
Well, if you want to be effective in combating money laundering, then you need to identify the key challenges that you are facing. And the most important, so the key issue is anonymity. The anonymity that surrounds these cryptocurrencies. And that can vary from a complete anonymity, meaning that there is the technology masking identity of owners completely, as opposed to pseudo-anonymous coins. And that means that if you deploy effort and techniques that you can find out who is behind the coins, who uses them. For instance, Bitcoin, if you could use these techniques, you can find out who uses them. But for a coin like Monero or Dash, it's completely impossible. It's completely anonymous. And the anonymity prevents cryptocurrency transactions from being monitored, allowing shady transactions to occur outside of the regulatory perimeter. And this is, of course, attractive for criminal organizations to obtain easy access to clean cash, both cash in and cash out. And when you look at the FATF documentation, for instance, they refer to a story of Ali Shukri Amin, who provided instructions over Twitter on how to use Bitcoin to mask the provision of funds to Daesh, which is a striking example of risks brought by anonymity. With regard to these pseudo-anonymous coins, there is an interesting project, and maybe the second speaker of the second round table will refer to that more in detail, the Titanium project, which is actually aiming at researching, developing and validating novel techniques in investigating the use of these coins and underground markets in the darknet. Second key challenge, cross-border nature. Because they are digital, they cross borders without being monitored. They cross borders very easily, and this probably means that if you want to tackle a cryptocurrency effectively, that you need to tackle it at the international level. Third and last point is that often you do not have a central intermediary. If you want to use legislation as a technique to tackle illegitimate use, then you need to have a person to attach regulation to. And if you do not have a person, well, it's very difficult to use regulation as a tool to prevent an illegitimate use. And an interesting line of thought here that was proposed by a French member of parliament in the European Parliament was to impose a middleman, so that where there is no identifiable person, you impose one. So you make sure that when you enter the market, that that product is accompanied by a person that you can attach a regulation to. And these are probably the key challenges.
Question. Donc il y a deux choses qui ont été abordées, l'anonymat ou le pseudo-anonymat. Et la deuxième chose dont j'en parlerai par après, c'est le cadre réglementaire actuel de l'Union européenne pour lutter contre cela. Ma question par rapport à l'anonymat ou le pseudonymat, est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec l'affirmation d'Enrique Aldaz-Carroll, donc qui est Senior Economist Trade Investment World Bank, qui dans un article qui a été publié le 28 février 2018 précise que les cryptomonnaies et la technologie blockchain constitueraient, et ça ce serait bien pour nous, de nouvelles armes pour lutter contre la corruption?
Well, that relates to technology being a good thing, because you can use it for all kinds of purposes, but also for crime fighting, corruption or other. A case study, for instance, is the case of ransomware, where computers are hacked and data is held hostage. And if you want to get access again to your own data, then you need to pay a ransom. And it is suggested that blockchain technology could prevent this ransomware, because you could decentralize your data, you could store it on various places. So if one of these places gets hacked and people try to steal your data in this place, then you have your data all over the place, still available. So why pay a ransom? So it's much more difficult for people with malicious intent to do these kinds of crimes. And another example that I know is Shenzhen in China. They are using blockchain technology to investigate tax fraud. I don't know how they do it technically, but they are doing it. So there are a lot of good use cases of this technology, and fighting crime will definitely be one of the possibilities as well.
Sachant que les blockchains enregistrent toutes les transactions, et il paraît que non, je pense que dans le futur, on va y intégrer des données additionnelles du style le pourquoi de ce transfert d'argent, date, heure, etc. Justement, est-ce que ça ne permettrait pas pour nous, acteurs de la sécurité, de pouvoir pister plus facilement les criminels qui utilisent ces monnaies virtuelles?
The use of blockchain, I think, if it would be implemented in this way, where information would be available for crime fighters, that would certainly help. But then you have also the issue of privacy protection and cybersecurity and so on, and it's a difficult balance to strike there. Personally, my opinion is that when there is a risk that cryptocurrencies are used for illegitimate purposes, and I don't really understand why some cryptocurrencies should be completely anonymous. I can't really find out immediately a case that is not illegitimate for using these. Well, in such a case, I think that society and societal needs should prevail over data protection and privacy, and that information should be made available. But that's a personal opinion.
Comme je l'ai dit dans mon introduction, il y a pas mal d'organismes internationaux, donc le Fonds monétaire international, la Banque mondiale, le G20, le G7. Est-ce qu'actuellement le cadre réglementaire de l'Union européenne fait suffisamment face à ces défis afin de lutter efficacement contre le phénomène de l'anonymat dans l'échange des monnaies virtuelles et de l'utilisation illicite de ces monnaies virtuelles?
Well, I already hinted on this. The current framework, so now there is nothing. AMLD4, the fourth anti-money laundering directive, addresses nothing. The fifth one that will be in place as of 1 January 2020 does a better job and includes two players in the scope. I referred to this already. Virtual currency exchanges, but only the fiat to crypto and vice versa, and custodian wallet providers. So these service providers that provide digital wallets to coin holders. They are labeled technically as obliged entities that have to perform customer due diligence and report suspicious transactions. And this is definitely progress, but it's only piecemeal. Because, and that's why I stress that there are a number of players in the crypto scheme. You have mentioned, you have noticed that I listed 7 players and only 2 are included in the European legislation. So that leaves a number of blind spots still. And it's fair to expect that criminals will exploit these blind spots and still enter into illegal transactions outside of the regulatory perimeter, even in the scope of AMLD 5. But does it matter? Well, does it matter? Well, it all depends on whether they will actually exploit these blind spots. But I think we are naive if we think that they will not. Something that was suggested by the European Commission in the parliamentary pre-works for AMLD 5 was to make user registration, or well, to introduce some kind of user registration. So to pull users out of the dark. If you use cryptocurrencies, you should register. But this has not made it to the finish line. And instead, there is a very soft commitment by the European Commission to assess whether or not a system of voluntary registration could be put in place in the future. So not mandatory, but voluntary. For a criminal, that would probably mean that hoping that a thief comes to the police station after committing a theft. That will not happen. So that approach is not so convincing. Of course, if you would implement user registration and make it mandatory, then you should not make a thing like this mandatory for every use of cryptocurrencies. That would be like overshooting it. But you could combine it with a threshold. For instance, when you deal in cryptocurrencies worth more than 10,000 euros, you need to register, something like that, very close to money laundering rules as well. We should not be naive, of course. Even if we would introduce mandatory registration, a criminal will probably not register. But it would be one more tool in the toolbox for sanctioning. And another point is that regulation is not enough. We should combine this with investigative techniques as well, to find out what is actually happening in the field. And then if something is discovered, you need to have the toolbox to sanction. Well, I think these are the most important. Well, the state of play is therefore there is something, but not really a lot. And at the European level, the AML approach is the approach taken. It's not that they are treated like banks and licensed like banks or something like that. That is explicitly not the route that is being taken.
Est-ce que selon toi, Robby, le niveau européen est suffisamment apte, le plus approprié pour lutter, ou bien, parce qu'on connaît aussi le phénomène des GAFA, il y a pas mal de problématiques avec cela, en termes d'application de la loi, etc. Est-ce que l'Europe est la plus appropriée pour lutter, ou il faut lutter au niveau mondial, c'est-à-dire prendre ce problème à ce niveau-là?
Well, the good news is that there is action undertaking at the global level. The FATF has started the exercise in 2015, I think, by considering virtual currencies. And then they expanded the scope of the recommendations in 2018 to virtual assets, I think, that they use, including virtual currencies and virtual asset service providers. And an interesting thing is that these virtual asset service providers include these pure crypto exchanges, whereas the European level does not. And recently, I think over the summer, the FATF the commitment even stronger, stressing that they expect members, and including the EU, to implement their new recommendations by June 2020. So that's in a couple of months, and they will do a monitoring exercise in June 2020. And part of what they want is that there is adequate monitoring, adequate sanctioning of illegal use cases of virtual assets by virtual asset service providers. There is sufficient oversight, and that there is not the reflex to say, well, let self-regulation do it. No, but a government-organized system of control, oversight, all this by next summer. When I look around, I see not a lot of action, to be honest, but let's see how it goes. At a European level, I think, of course, the European level is a better level than the national level, because cryptocurrencies are cross-border. So if you deal with it nationally, well, as soon as the crypto crosses the border, then it escapes your authority. So you need to deal with it at a sufficient supranational level. And Europe is then more sufficient than national. But that being said, if Europe would do nothing, then it's a good idea to, at a domestic level, take action already, to be the good kid on the block and to move faster forward.
Donc effectivement, je tiens à préciser que le GAFI a mis à jour en octobre 2018 ses recommandations en la matière, donc c'est quand même important. Maintenant, comme le dit Robby, mettre à jour des recommandations c'est une chose, la mise en application c'est autre chose. Maintenant une question, puisque parmi le public il y a des citoyens, il y a des entrepreneurs, vu ce que tu viens de nous expliquer par rapport au cadre juridique existant, est-ce que tu les conseillerais à se lancer dans l'aventure, dans les crypto-monnaies? Parce que je pense que vous avez bien compris qu'il y a l'usage légal et l'utilisation abusive des crypto-monnaies qui nous intéressent, nous, acteurs de la sécurité, mais vous, citoyens et entrepreneurs, vous posez la question de savoir, oui, mais actuellement, dans le cadre juridique qui est le nôtre, est-ce que c'est une bonne chose de s'investir dans la... ou se renseigner encore davantage, ou faut-il attendre encore l'action de l'Union européenne, etc., pour améliorer ce cadre juridique?
If we need to improve our efforts at the European level already, or did I understand your question correct?
Oui, tout à fait. Donc, moi, je suis un investisseur et comme je disais tout à l'heure, voilà, les taux applicables sur les comptes à vue bancaires sont tellement peu importants et quelquefois maintenant négatifs. Est-ce que je peux m'aventurer dans l'aventure d'investir dans les monnaies virtuelles en fonction du cadre juridique?
I would not recommend that you put all your money in when you invest in cryptocurrencies, because it's very, very volatile. This morning I referred to the Amsterdam tulip crisis, which is very comparable. If we all agree that a tulip is worth a house, then it's fine. Then you have something of value when you have a tulip. But if we wake up the next day and we realize it's just a flower, and you just sold your house for a flower, then you made a bad investment. And the same could be true for cryptocurrencies. And they are, they are not covered explicitly by by investor protective rules. Their investor protection is done via very general connecting factors like securities and so on. So what constitutes a security? That's a technical legal issue, and often it is considered that such a cryptocurrency is not in scope of investor protective rules, and there are a lot of financial supervisors warning for this. Beware of cryptocurrencies. When you invest in cryptocurrencies, know that there is nobody looking, that they are not supervised, that you can lose all your money, that you are susceptible to hack attacks, and so on. But nevertheless, people are investing in it, and of course it's their good right. But I would not suggest putting all your money in, because it's very dangerous.
Alors je vais terminer par une petite affirmation. En fait, en me renseignant pour l'organisation de ce colloque, j'ai lu pas mal de choses sur les crypto-monnaies, les blockchains, et j'ai vu le texte d'un certain Christo Karman, qui est CEO de TransferWise, qui est une fintech londonienne en fait spécialisée dans le transfert de devises à moindre coût, par rapport à Facebook et Libra, disant que Facebook en fait n'est pas venu avec le concept de Libra uniquement parce qu'il le voulait, mais parce qu'il était conscient qu'il y avait un problème de transfert de monnaie entre différents pays, et notamment le coût des transferts de monnaie entre pays est assez onéreux. Donc il était même assez content que Facebook se pose la question, mais lui se pose une autre question. Est-ce qu'on a absolument besoin d'une nouvelle monnaie pour répondre à ce problème de transfert de monnaie et du coût de celle-ci? Lui ne le pense pas, ben forcément, étant donné CEO d'une fintech londonienne spécialisée en transfert de devises à moindre coût, c'est normal qu'il réponde. Et donc lui dit, la réponse peut venir de la technologie. En fait, 21% de nos transferts arrivent en moins de 20 secondes. Et donc, il y a bien une réponse au coût et à la vitesse. Alors lorsqu'on lui dit, oui, mais si Libra est opérationnel en 2020, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire pour toi, pour vous? Ben, rien, parce qu'il existe déjà 10 000 crypto-monnaies. Là, Robby peut me confirmer. Donc en fait, ça n'en fera qu'une de plus. Alors concevoir la technologie, ça c'est faisable, tout le monde sait le faire, tout le monde sait le faire, certains spécialistes. Mais la question est de savoir, mais tout le monde va-t-il l'utiliser? Surtout par rapport à la réponse donnée par Robby. Dans le cadre juridique actuel, surtout, faites attention si vous investissez dans les monnaies virtuelles, pour quelle utilisation? Et de toute manière, il faudra aussi que les régulateurs acceptent le principe de cette monnaie. Qu'est-ce que tu penses de cette réflexion, Robby?
Let me start with it's just one more. I hesitate because it's not one more in the row of many, but it's the Facebook coin, and Facebook has a very large network. So if this would be introduced, that would have great impact and would have a very large scale because it is introduced by Facebook. And if you look at the companies behind this Libra initiative, then until there are still a lot of companies involved, and until very recently you also had Visa and MasterCard and PayPal and so on. And you still have Spotify and there are more examples. So big companies, fintech and beyond, behind this coin. So it has the potential of being a serious competitor for regular money, fiat money, if I put it like that. And that's also why at G7 level there were very grave concerns on the introduction of Libra, because the Libra would then go and compete with the euro and the dollar and so on. And so because of the scale. So it's not just one more, I think. And moreover, Libra has a specific feature that it is asset-backed. So it's not left solely to demand and offer, but if you want to acquire Libra, you have to put something in the system as well. You have to buy Libra. So at all times, the available Libra around should be backed by assets. So that's also something different from, for instance, a Bitcoin, because a Bitcoin is backed by nothing, only by our popular belief that it is worth something. That being said, Libra is designed as a means of payment. So to facilitate payments, small amounts, to make them faster, to make them more cheap. For instance, when you want to transfer funds from Belgium to Africa via Western Union, it costs you a certain amount, and it takes time. Well, via this route, it would cost you a lot less, and it would be much faster. But the remark I would like to make is that Bitcoin is also designed as a means of payment, but it's clearly not anymore. So what is to prevent that Libra would become a speculative instrument as well? And in addition, because it is somehow introduced by Facebook, and the wallet provider used for Libra is Calibra, which is a Facebook subsidiary, Facebook will have access to a lot of data of users, and they could potentially, well, they say that they are not going to, but they could potentially see how that Libra is spent, and they could personalize advertisements in view of a spending pattern. You do not have money right now to buy these shoes. You looked at these shoes from Facebook and no money yet. but tomorrow there's Libra in your account and there is a pop-up of the same shoes that you wanted to buy the day before, that would be very targeted advertisement that can be derived only from your spending pattern. So these things are possible from a technical perspective. So it's not just one more, I think.
Avant de donner la parole au public, je suppose qu'ils ont plein de questions à poser. Est-ce qu'il est envisageable qu'un État crée sa propre monnaie virtuelle? Et si oui, quels seraient les avantages et les inconvénients en 2 minutes?
Is it possible? A lot of countries are exploring that route. But I think they see it, for instance, in Sweden you had a project, the e-krona, but it has never been introduced, I think. But it is, these are projects to kind of digitalize your own currency, governed by central banks and governments, so controlled. This is very different from the Bitcoin and so on, which are not controlled. So there are a lot of banks exploring, central banks, I mean, exploring this route. But it's of course at odds with the whole idea of decentralization that that is surrounding these cryptocurrencies. So it's something completely different. And the examples that I know of are in Venezuela, the petro. It's not really a success. It's to avoid international sanctions, basically. So that's not really a good example. And I think that a small group of islands somewhere in the Pacific are going to experiment with cryptocurrency as the national currency soon. And that's interesting to see because it will never have a big impact because it's a small island and it's kind of a social experiment, kind of. So, well, on a large scale, no, but maybe in the future. And these things change so fast.
En tout cas, un grand merci Robby pour ce premier état des lieux, puisque nous avons 2 tables rondes. Est-ce que vous avez des questions? J'espère que oui. Est-ce qu'il y a des gens parmi vous qui veulent investir dans les monnaies virtuelles?
My first question is about how, for a country who are not very accustomed with technology, we can develop a cryptocurrency. This is the first question. And the second question is about the European Parliament. How can we give to the European Parliament access, or I can say a context, to fight the different problems about corruption and burst investment?
So your first question is, can you repeat?
The first question is how to develop cryptocurrency in a country where people are not really accustomed with technology.
Well, so in a country where technology is not readily available, how to introduce or where
I can
it is
say
too
really
expensive?
developed.
Yeah, well, I think that it's very difficult then. You need to have access to one, technology and know-how. But if you have these 2 things, then you can roll it out. And there are, for instance, Bitcoin. When you want to generate the Bitcoin, it costs a lot of computer power and server farms and so on. It costs a lot of electricity, so it's expensive. But there are other coins, if you want to introduce them, it costs you only the power of your own computer. And, well, using your own computer is possible everywhere across the globe, I think. So you need to have some know-how. And you need to have access to computer power, and then you could implement such a thing, because Venezuela is also not the richest country in the world. So these are the 2 things I think. And then a second, you refer to European Parliament. What we need to do to reinforce the combat?
Yeah.
Well, what they need to do is focus on uplifting anonymity, and this you could do via introducing user registration. So the example that I was referring to, if you want to really seriously get a tool to see what is going on, then you need to implement user registration, because otherwise you will not have a good idea of what is happening. Because I think that what we are doing is we are guessing. because we don't know how much misuse there is. But a good guess is that the scale could be high. Because if we know that it's interesting because of anonymity, then criminals will know as well. And I have the impression that law enforcement authorities, in the current state of technology, are only bumping into cryptocurrencies randomly, because it's very difficult to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because it's very difficult to detect them systematically. And for instance, in Belgium there is a case where a drug dealer was caught and they confiscated his computer and they bumped into cryptocurrencies on his computer. So they were not looking for cryptocurrencies, but they were there. You see? So there is still a lot of work to do. And the FATF is urging to do so. But I think the FATF is not going far enough. Yes.
Alors, ce sera une seule question et monsieur avait levé la main en premier. Désolé. Tout le reste, sinon vous pouvez le taper, on transmettra et on le mettra dans le rapport final.
I will be here during the coffee break for other questions.
Hello. So you just gave a good overview of the regulatory background and the weakness as it is today, even if after the AML5 will be enforced. But I would like to know your perspective, your point of view as a law enforcement in charge of organized crime. This is your title. How do you address, the organized crime regarding, working with the cryptocurrency today? What is the angle you could do, given, the weakness of the regulatory?
I'm not law enforcement. Law enforcement is over there. Okay. So probably your question is better equipped for one of the others. I'm university professor, and I'm not yet involved in law enforcement. So I'm not the best person to answer your question.
En tout cas, pour toutes celles et ceux qui ont des questions, faites-le parvenir à Émilie par écrit, on vous répondra. Et deuxième chose, un des rôles importants du CEIFAC, c'est pas seulement d'organiser des colloques sur des thématiques avec identification de problèmes, c'est de lister ceux-ci et puis d'en faire un rapport et d'aller porter la bonne parole auprès de la Commission européenne pour essayer justement de trouver des solutions par rapport à tout cela. Donc on l'a déjà fait à plusieurs reprises dans d'autres cadres. Donc ici, manifestement, cryptomonnaies, ça pose quand même quelques soucis. Donc on fera également un rapport de synthèse de tout ce qui se dit aujourd'hui. On va identifier tous les problèmes qui ont été exposés et que nous avons connaissance. Et nous allons, avec notre bâton de pèlerin, essayer auprès de la Commission européenne de trouver des solutions concrètes. Voilà.